Medieval 2 Total War, a retrospective review. Medieval 2 Total War is viewed by many as the pinnacle of the Total War series. Even for a lot of people who enjoyed the newer titles, Medieval 2 Total War and its mods hold a special place in their hearts. In this retrospective review, I'll try to cover a lot of important aspects of the game and analyze it in the context of the Total War series as a whole, much like my previous retrospective reviews of Empire, Napoleon, and Shogun 2. Let's get into it. Medieval 2 was the follow-up to the classic hit Rome Total War, and it definitely improves upon Rome in a number of ways. The graphics are undoubtedly better in pretty much every aspect, from the units to the maps to the environments, the buildings and animations, etc. There are also many enhanced mechanics, including more advanced campaign mechanics. It should not be forgotten that Medieval 2 was the sequel to the original Medieval Total War, which is the first Total War game I ever played, and is definitely a special one for me. As I mentioned in my Total War Games Ultimate tier list, when taking only the vanilla games into consideration, I put the original Medieval Total War above Medieval 2. In fact, I am on the record as stating that vanilla Medieval 2 is bad. And a lot of that has to do with Medieval 1. But why is that? The original Medieval Total War is just superior to Medieval 2 in many, many aspects. I won't say that it's an overall more advanced game. It isn't. It is especially weak in the battles department, with its extremely clunky and dated controls. However, the original Medieval has a lot of amazing campaign map mechanics that were not built into Medieval 2 in any way at all. Medieval 2 was essentially an enhanced version of the original Rome Total War engine, and it shows in the gameplay and file structure, sharing pretty much everything with Rome 1. The original medieval mechanics of factions re-emerging through rebellion, granting titles, very strong control over marriages, every single unit in an army having its own captain who was essentially a full-blown character who you could grant titles to, are just not present in Medieval 2 in really any capacity, which was extremely disappointing to me at the time of the game's release, and is honestly still very disappointing. Having factions re-emerge is one of the most critical aspects of some modern Total War titles, like Shogun 2 and Rome 2 that I enjoy, and it is something that I feel a lot of developers tend to overlook. Civilization 4 is one of my favorite games of all time, but it also lacked in that department, with civilizations disappearing forever after their political destruction. That's why my favorite mod for Civilization 4 is Legends of Revolution, which includes a revolution mechanic, allowing for factions to rebel and re-emerge, or simply emerge, if public order remains too low in certain areas and cities. Again, in Civilizations 5 and 6, this mechanic is also not really present, and it's the same thing for Total War. This mechanic needs to be in there in every title, especially due to the sheer amount of replayability it adds, and the fact that it was in the original Medieval, but not in Rome 1 or Medieval 2, is just rather baffling to me. The 2D art in Medieval 2 is another aspect that really drops the ball. While people mostly get upset about Rome 2's or Empire's 2D art, I actually think that there is a steep decline that begins with Medieval 2. Medieval 1 and Rome 1 have classic portraits, unit and building card designs that really capture the feel not only of the era, but of the aesthetic the game is going for. With Medieval 2, you have battles that go for a darker, realistic feel, but in the 2D art, you have these absolutely goofy-looking CG portraits, which creates a big contrast I dislike these portraits more than any other portraits in Total War history, with probably Empire's being my most disliked portraits. It's really difficult to feel any connection to these characters due to these portraits, for me. The worst aspect of Medieval 2 for me is that it doesn't feel medieval at all. Even though the game is going for this darker medieval feel, though I think it does it poorly for the reasons I just mentioned, This contrasts with the units and buildings, which seem to be more Renaissance or extremely late medieval in general, and a lot of the time I feel like this is Ren Fest Total War. There, I said it, Medieval 2 Total War feels like Renaissance Festival Total War to me. This is why I'm not a huge fan of the extremely popular mod Stainless Steel. In the end, that mod feels like what Renaissance Festival Total War should have been from the start. But, at the end of the day, it's still Renaissance Festival Total War. The worst offenders for me are the European General's Bodyguard units, which, from the start in the 11th century, have horse barding, as well as very anachronistic armor and jousting lances. It is such an immersion killer, and it's such a major bummer, because Medieval 2 has a wonderful armor progression system that is killed for me by the fact that all of the armor included from the start is anachronistic. Medieval 2's expansion, Kingdoms, is probably my least favorite expansion for any Total War game, with probably the exception of Empire's Warpath expansion. While the Teutonic and Americas campaigns can be pretty interesting and have some nice unique mechanics, overall the campaigns are some of the most bland I've ever played. I absolutely abhor and detest the Crusades campaign. It is just so ahistorical and bland, despite the extremely interesting setting, that it makes me nauseous just thinking about it. The Britannia campaign, while not horrible, doesn't feel as good as the Viking Invasion expansions campaign for Medieval 1, and Viking Invasion 2, the mod for Rome 1, which sort of recreates the Viking Invasion expansion, is also, I think, a nicer campaign. I want to make a quick point about the soundtrack. The soundtrack overall is great, and it has some of my favorite tracks in the series. However, especially after the incredibly atmospheric and emotional soundtrack of Medieval 1, and Rome 1 as well, Medieval 2's campaign map tracks, and some of the battle map ones, sort of fall flat for me. Also, I really dislike the tracks that have anachronistic harpsichord in them. It's just not enjoyable for me. Let's talk about the battles. For me, after the amazing feel of Rome 1's battles, where they really nailed the battle engine, Medieval 2's battles simply fail to capture that feel. There are several areas where the game takes a step back. Missiles feel a bit weird, skirmishing is made even more annoying than it is in Rome 1, animations are really clunky, and units look like they are moving in water some of the time. Getting units to use hit-and-run tactics and break away from enemy troops is extremely annoying. And cavalry charge collisions, this is the big one for me. Cavalry charge collisions do not feel that great compared to Rome 1's. All in all, I'm fine with the battles in Medieval 2, and they feel overall better than Rome 2, for example, but they are a step back for me compared to Rome 1's battle engine. It wouldn't be a Gudea video if I didn't make a few comments about the things that bothered me the most about the historical accuracy of the campaign map, so here goes. Portugal controls Navarre. Milan controls Genoa. Yerevan is the capital of Armenia province. The Principality of Antioch controls a lot of Edessan territories, when a lot of those Edessan territories had already fallen by the start date of the Crusades campaign. Venice controls Crete. There are no kingdoms of Leon, Castile, or Aragon, there is just a kingdom called Spain. Okay, now that that's all out of my system, let's move on. Now, it seems like I've been very negative in this review, and yeah, I have been. I think that Medieval 2 Vanilla is one of the worst games in the series. It doesn't know what atmosphere it's going for, the units don't look great and have immersion-breaking anachronistic designs for a lot of important units, the style is inferior to the original Medieval, it has fewer mechanics than the original Medieval, its animations are sluggish, some of the design choices are odd, and of course, it keeps that sort of ahistorical campaign map design that it sort of inherits from the original Rome. The vast majority of its good points come from the fact that it's essentially an enhanced version of the original Rome Total War. And this is where we start to talk about Medieval 2's positive aspects. The AI in the original Rome Total War is not great by any stretch of the imagination, and the fact that it's not great is well documented. This is compounded by the fact that the AI is not really that editable in the original Rome, though I do have to say there are a lot of things you can now edit in Rome Remastered, including having battle AI that is unique to particular factions. However, we do have a lot of AI modifications for Medieval 2 Total War that do go beyond the formations mods of the original Rome, and these AI mods really do enhance the experience significantly. There are also different AI mods that cater to different playstyles and the preferences of the player. Does the player want the AI to be peaceful or aggressive? More agreeable or standoffish? More passive or active? Right? The AI in Medieval 2 is simply far superior than the original Rome, and sometimes it makes playing Rome 1, the original, a bit more frustrating than it used to be, and sometimes even with the improved AI of the remaster, knowing that Medieval 2's modded AI can actually be pretty competent sometimes. While I don't like the inconsistent graphical style of vanilla Medieval 2, the game is highly moddable, and modders can make some absolutely beautiful units and environments. Europa Barbarorum 2, Broken Crescent, Tsardom's Total War, these mods especially have some of the best looking Total War units I've ever seen. So while I do still feel in general like Rome Total War has a more consistent design, and in general looks nicer than Medieval 2 in that regard, Medieval 2's engine does have that potential to look amazing, and some mods have achieved this. As you can see, the moddability of Medieval 2 is its greatest strength, and that is the singular reason why it has remained a popular and relevant game in the series even all these years later, and why it's probably my second or third most played Total War game of all time, behind only Rome 1 and perhaps Shogun 2. The mod scene for Medieval 2 is simply unparalleled, and only the mod scene for the original Rome can even come anywhere near it, and even then it's not even that close. While I personally prefer the mods for original Rome, I can't deny that the vast majority consider Medieval 2's mods to be superior, and there are a ton to choose from. There are just so many extremely popular mods for the game, and there is so much variety there. Third Age and its submods, Stainless Steel and its submods, Broken Crescent, Chivalry 2, Tsardoms, Europa Barbarorum 2. There is something for everyone here. I have to say, Broken Crescent and Tsardom's Total War are the two most beautiful mods for any Total War game ever created, in my opinion, from the units to the campaign maps. And I think if anyone is on the fence about picking up Medieval 2, I would first point them in the direction of Broken Crescent. I think I have gotten my point across here in this video. I know I have an extremely unpopular opinion here, but I think I have made most of my positions pretty clear. Again, I don't dislike Medieval 2, and I think it has the best mods. Of that there is no doubt. But vanilla Medieval 2, the base game, I just hate it, and it never worked for me. Never felt compelled to complete a campaign in it, went right back to playing Chivalry Total War for Rome Total War when Medieval 2 came out whenever I wanted to play a medieval era campaign. It is, without a doubt, the Total War game I was most disappointed in at launch for all of the mechanics it lacked compared to Medieval 1, its inconsistent graphical style, somewhat clunky battles, and underdeveloped factions. Well, Medieval 2 does have Milan as a playable faction, and I think that is something we can all be happy about. Thanks for watching. I hope you don't hate me now. If you like videos about the historical Total Wars and their mods, yes, even those for Medieval 2, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It really helps out. I'll see you in the next one. Later.